All right. Hello. Today we are doing a read aloud. We're going to do one half of a read aloud of this book, Yours Sincerely, Giraffe by Iwasa. Iwasa. I may have mispronounced that. Um, this is a book about uh, someone who is a little bored. A lot of people have expressed to me and maybe to Miss Emily and to other teachers that they're feeling a little bored during quarantine. They don't have a lot to do. So I thought I'd read a story about someone else who was bored and what they did. This is just a fun story, something to do, something to take your mind off things, and maybe you learn something. Maybe you get a couple ideas about something you'd like to do. So we'll be doing this in two parts because it is a longer story. I tried to pick something a little bit older for us today, and yeah, I'm excited. Let's take a read for yours sincerely, Giraffe. So we have this first dear reader little note at the page right here. Dear reader, tell me, how do you spend your days? Do you have good friends, or are you all alone? Do you have lots and lots to do, or are you feeling bored? Let me introduce you to Giraffe. Write my story, Giraffe said. It's perfect for people who are alone, and for people who are bored, and even people who are busy might like to take a little break and read it too. A bored giraffe writes his first letter, so there are going to be chapters in here. This is the African savannah, home to one bored giraffe. On this day, like every other day, the sky was clear and blue. Cream puff clouds drifted slowly by a gentle breeze by. Excuse me. Cream puff clouds drifted slowly by. A gentle breeze crossed the plain, and there was an endless supply of acacia leaves. I may have mispronounced that, which Giraffe loved to eat. Sounds perfect, you say? You're quite right. Giraffe had everything he needed, but in fact, there was one thing he was missing: an extra special friend. He had no one to share his feelings with, and so, alas, he was a very bored giraffe, and one more boring day was coming to an end. Here he is eating his leaves. Today was just the same as ever. Nothing happened as usual, and I am just the same as ever, bored as usual. Giraffe watched the sun slip slowly out of sight. The horizon, make sure we didn't skip a page here. No, okay. The horizon was mirrored in his big round eyes. Suddenly, he blinked. I wonder what's on the other side, he thought, and what sort of animals live there. He stretched his long neck as far as it would go, but he couldn't see beyond the savannah. Wait, I know. I'll write a letter. Where did he get that idea? Well, when he was munching on leaves that afternoon, he had happened to see this sign hanging from a tree. Announcing a new mail service. Willing to deliver anything, anywhere. Contact me anytime. Fee up to you. From a bored pelican. A bored pelican? That sounds just like me, thought Giraffe. Maybe if I write a letter, I'll feel less bored. And if I use the new delivery service, Pelican will feel less bored too. Yes, that's what I'll do. I'll write a letter. That night, Giraffe fell asleep feeling much happier than usual as he thought about all the things he wanted to say. The next day, he wrote his very first letter and took it straight to Pelican. Pelican was a little nervous. After all, this was his first customer. Oh, welcome to the Pelican delivery service. Where shall I take your letter? Giraffe was a little nervous too. Give it to the first animal you meet on the other side of the horizon, he said. The horizon? You mean that place over there? Pelican pointed to the border between the bright blue sky and the green savannah. That's right. Giraffe was beginning to feel excited. And please bring back a reply. Of course, the horizon doesn't look very far. I should be able to make it there and back before the sun goes down. Pelican flapped his wings and flew up in the air, higher and higher, as if he were being sucked into the sky. Be sure to get a reply, Giraffe shouted. Okay. In no time, Pelican had shrunk to a tiny little speck and disappeared. Is the horizon near or far? Pelican had said he would be back before sundown, but it was now long past sunset and darkness had fallen. Giraffe sighed. I doubt that even Pelican can fly in the dark. I guess there's no point in staying up all night. I'd better go to bed." He gently closed his eyes. Even though Pelican had not returned, Giraffe still felt peaceful inside. "It's all right. I'm sure he'll come back with a letter from the other side of the horizon." From early the next morning, the not so bored Giraffe watched the sky for Pelican's return. Here he is. He's looking up. He craned his neck so eagerly that it grew 2 inches. By the time noon rolled around, Giraffe's neck had stretched another inch. Then, at last, there he was, the long awaited Pelican. Giraffe was popping with excitement. He could see something in Pelican's beak. "Hurry!" he shouted. "Show me the letter! Quick! Quick!" But Pelican gave him a long, hard look. "Now listen here, Giraffe," he said. "Do you have any idea how hard that job was?" Giraffe realized he was being impatient, so he took a deep breath. "It was that hard, was it?" he said. "Here, let me get you something to eat. Put down your bag and have a good, long rest." "Oh dear," thought Giraffe as the words left his mouth. "Why on earth did I tell him to take a long rest? He was dying to read the letter that very minute." Pelican's taking his rest here. Pelican ate until his belly was full and his heart content. Then he told Giraffe his story. Although the horizon had looked close, it was very far away. No matter how far he flew, he never seemed to get any closer. When he finally reached the other side, all that he could see was water. There was more water than any lake he had ever seen in Africa. "You said to give the letter to the first animal I met on the other side of the horizon, right?" Pelican said. "That's right," Giraffe nodded. "Well, the first animal I met was named Seal. 'Here's a letter,' I said. 'Please bring me a reply.' 'Will do,' he said, and then he zoomed away." Pelican discovered that the big water was called Whale Sea and that Seal's job was to deliver all the mail there. Pelican was particularly impressed to hear that Seal had just won an award for being such a hard worker. "Well, then who got my letter?" Giraffe asked. He was beginning to feel a little worried. In a very small voice, Pelican said, "Well, it seems that the only animal in Whale Sea that ever gets letters is, someone or other." Giraffe leaned forward eagerly. "And did you meet this someone or other?" "No, no, that's not his name. Actually, it sounded something like my name. Let me think for a moment." Pelican tried hard to remember the name, but that was the last thing Giraffe cared about. All he could think of was opening that letter. He wasn't bored any longer. His heart was pounding as if his whole body were a drum. Thumpity thump, thumpity thump. Boom, boom diddy boom, boom diddy boom. Pelican couldn't stop talking about his first delivery job. By the time he finally went home, it was already dark. "I never did find out the name of that someone or other," thought Giraffe. He wanted to read the reply right now, but he would have to wait until morning. The moon was just a tiny sliver, and the night was far too dark to read. Can you guess who got Giraffe's letter? His name sounds a little like Pelican. If you guessed Penguin, you're right. Shall we take a peek at Penguin's life? What do you think? Should we take a peek at Penguin's life? Okay, let's take a peek. Penguin and the magnificent Professor Whale. Just as Seal had said, the only animal in Whale Sea who got letters was Penguin. Most were from his girlfriend. Oh boy. But sometimes he got letters from his mother or father. He had left his home on Penguin Island to live at Whale Point. Whale Point was just a tiny bit of land that jutted out into Whale Sea. Once long ago, so many whales had lived in the sea that the water was black with them. Now, however, there was only one old whale left, but he was no ordinary whale. He was Professor Whale of Whale Point School, and Penguin was his student. There was no school on Penguin's Island, so he was studying abroad. There were two reasons that Professor Whale was a teacher: because he was extraordinarily big and because he was extraordinarily old. In other words, because he was, quite simply, extraordinary. And he was especially good at spouting. No one could spout like him. Everyone clapped when he sent a magnificent spout high into the air. Privately, he had decided to retire from teaching when he could no longer spout like that. But he did not need to worry yet. His spout was still stupendous. What a great word, stupendous. Penguin was the only student in the school. On this particular day, he was studying as usual. The topic was the mysteries of the sea. Describe the sea for me, said Professor Whale. Why, it's blue, sir, Penguin answered. Blue? A good start. Bring me some sea water and show me. Penguin filled the bucket from the sea and took it to the professor. Said the professor. What have we here? It doesn't look blue at all. What? That can't be right. But when Penguin looked into the bucket, it was true. In fact, the seawater was completely transparent. That's strange. Let me try again. But no matter how many times he tried, the water in the bucket was never blue. He looked first at the blue water in the sea, and then at the water in the bucket, and sighed. It just didn't make sense. At that very moment, Seal arrived. Penguin, I have a letter for you. Penguin thought it must be from his girlfriend. Ugh. But Seal said, No, not today. This time it's from someone new. Really? Who? Penguin asked. Someone whose name sounds a lot like yours. Now, wait a minute. That was the delivery bird's name. I don't know who it's from, but whoever it is, they want a reply. I'll come back later to pick up your letter. And off he swam at great speed. Penguin began to read. Dear you, whoever you are. What? Oh man, what was Giraffe's voice again? Dear you, whoever you are, who lives on the other side of the horizon. I am Giraffe. I live in Africa. I'm famous for my long neck. Please tell me all about yourself. Yours sincerely, Giraffe. Penguin had never heard of Giraffe, and he had never heard of a neck either. Professor, do you know Giraffe, who lives in Africa? Let me see. I think I've heard the name before. Well then, do you know what a neck is? Giraffe says he has a long neck. Hmm. Isn't that the place under the head where it gets narrower? The professor did not seem too sure about this. Then where is your neck, Professor? Where's your sorry. I got his voice. I got his voice down. Then where's your neck, Professor? A brilliant question, Penguin. That'll be your next lesson. In fact, the professor did not know where his neck was either. Penguin began examining the whale's enormous body from head to tail. After some time, he suddenly shouted, Aha! I found it! Penguin patted the narrow spot just before the professor's tail. Your neck must be here, sir, but it gets smaller. That means you have a very big head. In fact, almost your whole body is head. Oh, of course. That's why you're so smart. Penguin chattered away, very satisfied with his answer. Here he is searching. Although the professor wasn't sure that this was quite right, he was pleased to be called smart. Bravo, an excellent answer, he cried and blew a great spout into the air. He listened for applause, but there was only silence. Looking around, he saw that Penguin was staring into the sea with a thoughtful expression. What are you doing? Penguin was gazing at his reflection in the water. Professor, where is my neck? But the professor had no idea. That'll be your homework for today, he announced. School's out. The sea turned from blue to orange, but Penguin was no longer thinking about the blue mystery of the sea. His neck was a much more important problem. He turned his back to the setting sun and stared at his long shadow stretching out in front of him. Just then, Seal swam up. Hello there, Penguin. Did you write a reply? A reply? Oh, I forgot. I wonder what I should write. He must send something, but he must send something before the sun went down. He wasn't quite sure what to say, but he wrote a letter anyway, and Seal rushed back to give it to Pelican. Sorry to keep you waiting. Here's your reply. Seal showed him the letter, but Penguin was busy eating. The fish here are pretty tasty. Only after gulping down the last fish did he take the letter. Slowly and a little clumsily, he flew into the sky. He had eaten a bit too much. I'd like to come back here again, he thought as he left Whale Sea behind. By the time he reached the savannah and the impatient Giraffe, he was exhausted. Then he saw Giraffe's beaming face. It may have been a hard trip, he thought to himself, but it was worth it. We'll read a couple more pages. Penguin's reply. Just gotta make sure I'm not late for my meeting. Day came to the savannah, but Giraffe still did not read the letter. Even though he had been waiting so eagerly, even though he had wished all night for morning to come. Not yet, he said to himself. Not yet, just a little longer. I forget if I. Giraffe's voice is tough. It seemed such a waste to open the letter now. He was so happy just to have it. He wanted to relish that feeling for as long as he could. Just then he heard a rustling sound. He looked around, and there was Pelican, hiding in the shadow of the leaves, except that only his head was hidden. Oh, it's you, Pelican. What are you doing here? Oh, nothing. Well, I was just wondering what the letter said. Giraffe had forgotten that he wasn't the only one who was bored. Pelican was bored too. It was time to read that letter. Pelican, he said, I was just about to open it. Let's read it together. Really? I mean, I was thinking of taking the day off anyway, so if you want me to stay and read it with you, I could. Actually, Giraffe was Pelican's only customer so far, but he didn't say that. When Giraffe finally opened the letter, his heart was pounding and his knees were trembling, and so were Pelican's. Dear Giraffe, I am Penguin. I live at Whale Point. When I read your letter, I learned for the first time that there is such a thing as a neck. I think maybe I don't have a neck, or maybe I am all neck. Yours sincerely, Penguin at Whale Point. Giraffe tilted his head to one side atop his own very long neck. What on earth could Penguin mean? How could there be a body with no neck, or a body that was all neck? Aha, that's it! Pelican shouted. His name is Penguin. Not being able to remember the name had really been, oh, excuse me, not being able to remember the name had really been bugging him. Pelican, Pelican, Giraffe said suddenly. I know you were going to take the day off, but could you do that some other day? I want you to deliver another letter for me. I'll write it right now. Pelican's eyes grew round. You what? He was going to say no. After all, he had only come back yesterday from the other side of the horizon, but then he remembered all those tasty fish, and one other thing crossed his mind: the hard-working delivery seal. The next thing he knew, he was saying, of course, Whale Point, right? Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. All right, so we're going to stop there for this video, and we're going to pick it up on this page. Well, the next video should be a little longer. Pick it up on this page for part 2 of yours sincerely, Giraffe. All right, bye bye.